Okay, so here's how I'm gonna preface this. You have total veto power over any of my proposals, and I know you know that, but I really mean that. If I'm showing you something with openings, it's like clothes, you know? It's like a pair of jeans that you're gonna wear for the next 7 years. Okay, it's totally not like that, but you get what I'm saying. I consulted with some friends, I put some thought into this, and here are my proposals. Invited you.
I'm here.
Now, let's first take black. So your move, of course, has always been e5, right? That's like the rite of passage. My proposal is for me to teach you the Sicilian defense.
Oh, wow.
Now, let me explain the rationale behind this. I'm going to come at it from 3 angles. First of all, in this, are you aware of what White's main response to the Sicilian is? This is not what you're going to face most commonly, but have you heard of the open Sicilian?
Only from you, I think.
So the open Sicilian, this is White's main line response to most Sicilians, is knight f3 followed by d4, opening up the center. And against the open Sicilian, there is a incredibly tricky opening called the accelerated dragon. It is an opening where you fianchetto the bishop very, very early. And
Is that what you call it, or is that its real name?
That's its real name. And it comes from the non-accelerated dragon. The regular dragon is d6, knight f6, and now g6. And chess players, as you know, are known for their incredible originality. Apparently this resembles a dragon. You can kind of see that, the curves of a dragon. And it also is a very aggressive opening, so it's like a fire-breathing dragon kind of opening. I'm sure there was some namer that got off on this. But the regular dragon has kind of fallen out of favor. It's incredibly theoretical. You're going to have to do hours and hours of memorization. And White gets most of the fun here. But with the accelerated dragon, you actually develop the knight first. And the accelerated dragon is a lot less scary to play than the regular dragon, and it's a lot more tricky. So you might not face the open Sicilian because most people of your rating don't really know how to play against the Sicilian. And that segues me into the second appeal of the Sicilian. Most people you play are going to mess this up pretty badly. A lot of people are going to play this like an Italian. They're going to play bishop c4 here, right? They're going to think, oh, well, this is the same as an Italian. But the thing is, after bishop c4, black is already slightly better. And I will show you exactly how to play this position. You're going to get the kind of position you can immediately play for a win in. It's going to be unbalanced. And this is going to allow you ultimately to work on some of the concepts and put them into practice. So that's, I would say, reason number 2. Most people you play are going to immediately screw up. And reason number 3, as I've been hinting at, is that I want you to expand basically your horizons, by which I mean I want you to expand your ability to play various kinds of positions, get more unbalanced positions. And would it make sense if I said that after e5, the positions tend to remain relatively balanced in most of your games for some time?
Yeah.
I'm going to plunge you into the Mariana Trench, into the frickin' deepest of deep ends. But first we're going to do some very thorough preparation. You're going to know exactly what you're doing. And I can guarantee you, if you do a little bit of review, we cover all the bases, you're going to start getting advantages with black in the positions that you like. So that's my proposal. I know you don't know much about the Sicilian yet, so it's hard for you to make an informed decision, but how does this sound in general?
Oh, anything with accelerated dragon in the name's got me fully on board.
Excellent, it worked. That's not actually what it's... No, it actually is what it's called.
Yes,
it actually is what it's called.
It's called accelerated
It cannot be mistaken for anything else. And the accelerated dragon, to whom, I'm just looking up, to whom do we owe the deepest debt of gratitude? Who was the first person to play the accelerated dragon in recorded history? Let's see. I'm running a little search. It was 1851, a guy named Marmaduke Wyville.
Wow.
I don't think anybody's had that first name in about 100 years.
Yeah, wow. That's fucking awesome.
It's like one of those British names like Egbert. And Marmaduke Wyville actually won the game against Alexander Kennedy in 1851 London. He was the first person to play the accelerated dragon. It was played only a handful of times in the 1800s, and it really only caught on in the last 50 years. So it's new, and it's incredibly tricky, and some of the tricks within the main lines are really, really cool. Okay, so without further ado, that's from the black side. We'll start with this. Now, very quickly, from the white side. Of course, I think you should keep e4. Now, we have several important things we need to do. First of all, I know that some people in the PogChamps will definitely, not everybody will play e5. So you need a line against the Sicilian, and we need to look at some of the sidelines. The French, this is all familiar to you, right? You've faced this before, the Caro-Kann, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it won't take us long. We'll just have one session where we look at all these sidelines. And against the Sicilian, I'll show you a line that I actually played as a kid, which is the c3 Sicilian, super dangerous line. So you'll be booked up on both ends of the Sicilian. Now against e5, I put, again, a lot of thought into this. I fluctuated, vacillated, I couldn't decide. But I think I've decided on an opening that you're going to really enjoy and with which you're going to kick a lot of ass. And that is called the Vienna Gambit. So basically, the move is knight c3. This is already not what you play, right?
Right.
And this is considered by many to be senseless, because why play knight c3 when you can play knight f3? But there is a very specific follow-up. After knight f6, you play the move f4. Now, what is 2f4 called?
What do you mean? That's a gambit, king's gambit, right?
That's the king's gambit. This is basically a very much improved version of the king's gambit. And in many games, your opponent is going to greedily take the pawn. Black is already in huge trouble here by move 4. Can you maybe tell me why black is in trouble? Think about what the knight on f6 allows white to do. White basically makes a huge claim in the center immediately with tempo.
Is it just pushing up the pawn again? Attacking the knight?
Bingo. Now where can this freaking knight go? Nowhere, right? It has to go back to g8. And we're going to talk about the theory here. I analyzed the hell out of this for a student a couple of months ago. So you're going to benefit from some cool analysis. Black is already in big trouble here. Some of the lines that we're going to look at are super cool. You sacrifice more pawns, but it's not the sort of thing where you have to always sacrifice a million pieces. At most, you sacrifice 2 pawns. And again, this will allow you to get the kinds of positions I think you want to get. Attacking positions, open positions. And most importantly, it's going to help you put into practice and I would say crystallize the concept we talk about. So that's my recommendation. Also sounds reasonable?
Very much so.
Okay, well, I've set the table. Now I got to deliver. Now the less glamorous part. I think just today we'll do a little bit of Sicilian. I'll introduce you to it. And we'll go from there, okay?
Yep, works for me.
So, e4, c5. A good way to approach openings in general, I like to get the lay of the land first. What is it that we're going to have to look at so that, we can basically know approximately where we are. Now, knight f3 is by far the main move. The alternatives to knight f3, there is c3. What is the idea of this move? You should be able to immediately...
It's getting ready to prep d4, right?
Mm-hmm. Getting ready to prep d4, so black has to respond to that. There is the move d4 immediately. Some people who don't really know what they're doing do this. And now there's the Smith-Morra gambit, which is c3. Not a lot of people at your level play it. Some people will play queen takes d4. You can already tell me what black does here.
He just develops the knight normally with tempo c6.
Exactly. And let's say the queen drops back. You already have the necessary information to play the next move. Play it like an accelerated dragon.
Yeah, so now I'm just going to bring the c pawn to c4, right?
Wait, but it's black to move.
Oh, wait. What?
I mean, you're playing black.
I thought I was playing white. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. But we're looking at like the Sicilian from black's perspective.
Gotcha.
You were just testing me.
Yeah. Now I'm just developing on the other side, right? So I'm going knight to f6. Was that the
That's fine, but if you play it in the spirit of the accelerated dragon, then you would play g6. First, you feed Keto the bishop.
I always feed Keto the bishop?
Most of the time, except for one line, which we're going to talk about right now. So that's d4. We'll deepen our knowledge of all of this as well. I'm trying to just give you the lay of the land for now. And then finally, there's knight f3. By a country mile, you're going to face this move most often. So now you play knight c6, right?
Yeah.
And the move that, according to my training with my students around your level, is bishop c4. Because, again, people play the Italian against e5 and they don't sense the difference. The key difference here is that the e7 pawn has not moved to e5 yet. So what move becomes possible now? And this basically takes the entire point out of the move bishop c4, which is, of course, to pressure the pawn.
Oh, I can just move it up to e6 instead, right?
You can just move it up to e6, blunting the bishop and preparing potentially what move?
d5.
But right, potentially. You don't necessarily want to rush with that move. The move is e6. And normally white plays one of several moves. He can either castle, he can go knight c3. Let's begin by assuming that white castles. Now, once again, you have several moves. The move that I like is knight f6. Okay? Now, you are essentially inviting the move e5, which would already be pretty bad. Where do you think the knight should go? And in the Sicilian, it's going to be very important that you remain aggressive. That mentality has to be basically permanent.
Do we just get it to e4 right away?
Well, the knight on e4, take a good hard look at this knight. Is it supported by anything?
No.
And look at this pawn on e5. It's stopping its two retreat squares. So d3 would trap the knight.
Okay.
So you're right in terms of the knight advancing, but this pawn on e5 is what you need to exploit here.
Okay, so, I mean, I can't just take it with the knight because I don't...
Not yet, but you can move this knight to attack it.
Yeah, so I just bring it up to g4.
You bring it up to g4. And after rook e1, you can now undermine this pawn, basically, which gives you really nice development with what move? Get rid of this pawn forcibly. When I say that, you should be thinking of pawn moves, because a pawn move essentially offers a pawn trade and gets that pawn off the board.
Yeah, I just don't know which one. Do I do it with the f pawn or the d pawn?
What does your gut say? Which move seems less weakening?
D pawn.
Yeah. And also what the d pawn does is it allows you now to develop your bishop to d6.
Okay.
Let's say white goes h3, you drop the knight back. And black has very nice development. Where is that bishop on c8 going to develop itself to? And this is a very sexy development square.
Eventually or right now?
Basically on the next move. Like, where... Well, let's say eventually. Where is the ideal square for that bishop?
Wouldn't I want it on the long diagonal?
Absolutely.
So like b7?
b6, bishop b7. And this is called the Horowitz bishops. There's actually a name for bishops configured in this way. Okay. They're both aimed at the king's side, and black's got amazing development. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Quick tactical question of d4. In your head, let's say c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight takes d4, queen takes d4. Black to move. And win.
I win the queen?
You do, with one move. And you had a similar idea against Erob that one time in PogChamps 1. What you need to notice here is the standoff between the queens.
Yeah, so the only thing separating the queens is the bishop in front of it.
So let's get it the hell out.
So I just move it? Do I move? But where though? Oh, I deliver a check.
Bingo.
I deliver a check at h2.
Exactly, and then you win the queen. That is super important concept. It occurs often in the Sicilian. I guarantee you, I'm saying it right here, right now, you are going to win. I would even go so far as to say a PogChamps game with a concept like this. You're going to win a queen like this, because people fall into this all the time. Okay, so in this position, white doesn't have to go e5. If white goes d3, expand in the center. And this is a move we kind of referenced just a second ago.
Are we just going right there at d4 with the knight?
Okay, so we're going d5. I got excited there when you said the word d. Okay, mind.
Gotcha.
Now, knight d4, but I'm not going to let you go that easily, right? You say a move like this in front of me, and you're going to hear it from me. So knight d4. Shall I list the flaws of this move?
I want to hear every single goddamn one.
I'm gonna twist the knife, and so far you're never gonna get it out. Now the first thing is it doesn't develop a piece, and it doesn't occupy the center with pawns. The fact that a piece stands in the center like this doesn't really mean anything. So for example, white can simply play c3, and the knight is just gonna have to move. But the other thing is, I can take this knight, and the knight is replaced by a pawn. Is this pawn good? Now you've got doubled pawns, right?
Yeah.
Now you've got doubled pawns. So. And third of all, white can just ignore with knight c3. So when you are centralizing a piece, when you're putting a piece in the center, generally speaking, the purpose of that is if that piece is on an outpost or if that piece is attacking something specific, right? And that's a mentality you want to start having. Like every time you put a piece on a square, what exactly is that piece doing there? If you ask that question of the d4 knight, you can't come up with anything. It's not threatening anything. It's not doing anything, right? Sorry to harp on this so much, but that was an instructive mistake. I joke that was an instructive mistake. So the move is d5. You're attacking this twice. White must take. You take with the e-pawn. What opens up now?
We now have the e-file open.
White has the e-file, but what does black have?
We're attacking the bishop, and we also have...
Does bishop think about it? Where can it now go?
Are we pinning the knight?
Potentially.
E4?
But first we must finish our kingside development. We go bishop e7. The reason we go to e7 is in order to take the sting out of the move rook e1. Then we castle. Black is better. We have bigger control of the center. This bishop will come out either to g4 or f5. It should just make sense to you that black's position is really comfortable. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
At some point when we finish the theoretical part, we will practice all of these positions and we will deepen your understanding. But right now I'm giving you the lay of the land. This is the most common line you're going to face. That's why we're spending the longest on it. And lastly, if white goes rook to e1 and defends the pawn, would d5 be a good idea here?
The only thing I see is it gives the check right away, so I won't be able to block with the bishop. Right?
Well, so what does white do after d5?
He just takes, right?
And can you take with the pawn?
No, because it's pinned.
It's pinned, so you have to take with a knight. Not great. So you actually have a tactic here. And this tactic is, I'll just show you because this is a hard move to find. Knight takes d4. You've seen this idea before. What is the follow-up?
Am I just attacking with pawns here with that fork at d5?
Yep. And white is forced to give up the bishop. So you've traded pieces, but white has given up his light squared bishop. That's a super important piece. And the reason that is a super important piece, let's say knight c3, you can just drop your queen back. Again, you're going to do the same thing you did earlier. You're going to put your bishops on d6 and d7. You're going to have the two bishop advantage and a great position. This rook on e4 is also kind of sticking out like a sore thumb. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Okay.
So we looked at all three of the possibilities here. Okay, so that's what happens at bishop c4. Basically, you go knight f6, you go e6 and knight f6, and then you either go d5, or you can consider this idea of knight takes d4.
When do I want to take on e4 over doing just d5?
So taking on e4 is rare. You basically only want to take in the event of this, or if white defends with the queen, you actually could consider taking on e4 here because you have the same thing. And it is true that white can force a queen trade. But again, you have the two bishops, you have better control of the center. That's another thing I want you to start doing. You need to be comfortable sometimes going for the endgame if you're better. And thank you, Chess Dojo, for the raid. So does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you would go knight takes c4 in the event that white doesn't play d3. If white does play d3, you go d5. The trade is forced, and you move your bishop out, you castle. Development is very natural. Remember, the same principles that apply in e5 openings apply here. It's not a different language. It's similar positions, similar concepts. It's just something fresh, it's something more open.
No, we didn't fianchetto in this position here.
No.
Right?
So this is the only line, this line and then the c3 Sicilian too, where you do not fianchetto your bishop.
So that we only do this when they push the bishop out to c4? This is the
Yes.
line for c4? Okay.
And the reason, how do you remember this? Because the move bishop c4, you got think about it like, oh, he's trying to play the Italian against the Sicilian. Well, why is this not the same thing? Because the pawn hasn't moved yet, which means the pawn can now blunt the bishop. Okay.
That makes sense.
So perhaps just the only other thing I think we can look at today, I don't want to overwhelm you, and I know this is kind of relatively dull. It's just sort of a must. You do this once and then you have a blast. Let's take a quick look at just a couple moves here in the main line. Is that fine with you?
Fine by me.
And okay. So you go g6. Your next move is bishop g7. Now, golden rule number 1. It is extremely important that you never play e6 in these positions. Never combine the moves g6 and e6 in the accelerated dragon. And, okay, also never say never, but that is about as hard and fast of a rule as there is. Now, you might ask, well, why the hell am I so worried about playing e6, right? So, and why would you play e6? So a lot of people play e6 because it defends this square, and they think, oh, maybe I'll put the bishop here. You have bishop always fianqueros. Let me show you a game that I played, or rather a game segment I played many years ago, and this will show you all you need to know, okay? This is worth it. And you get to see me suffer. Even though I won this game in the end, you get to see like 9-year-old Daniel get absolutely destroyed. So,
right.
In the opening. I am playing black here. This was 2005, so I was 9. I was rated 1800. He played the Smith-Morra Gambit. I referenced this, where you basically sacrifice a pawn. We will talk about this. But you will not accept the gambit in order to get rapid development. Here's, guess what I did. I played knight c6, bishop c4, and I played g6. Okay? Bishop c4, bishop g7, castles. Sorry, you played knight f3, bishop g7, castles. And guess what move I played here?
Oh my god, you did e6.
I frickin' did this, and then I got several limbs of mine chopped off by my coach. I think I still remember that lesson after this game. The kinds of things I heard, you will not believe. Because to a Russian player, this move is anathema. It's unthinkable. Now, why is this move so frickin' bad? Because it weakens this square. And the dark square, look at the dark squares, d6 and c7. You see how weak they are?
Yeah.
How can white stick the ultimate piece onto d6?
They're just going with the queen.
Not with the queen. There's an even better piece. He did put the queen on d6 in a move, but how about the knight? Get the knight there.
So he just brings the knight to to b5 and then
yes.
Over? Okay.
Well, potentially knight d6. You can see how devastating that is, right? That literally entombs black's entire queen set. I play knight f6. But instead of knight d6, which would be good, now he plays queen d6, which is even better. What is he threatening? What is his next move going to be? He's going to pre-move this. Literally. Don't overthink it. So let's say a6.
I don't...
Simpler than you think. It is. It wins the game immediately. And I think, again, you need to be careful about assuming a square is defended. A square can be attacked more than once. Even if it's defended by a piece, it's still accessible. What 2 squares did I mention when I said e6? This was one of them.
E7 and c7.
Yeah, knight c7 wins the queen.
Oh,
checkmate.
Jesus. I was just looking at queens checkmates here. Okay.
Right, so knight c7 and black has to give up the entire queen.
Right.
There's no defense against this. I played queen e7. He gives a check. And now, something we will also work on, the order of things. White to play and win material. Do you take the rook first? What do you do first? What do you do second? How do you win the game?
I imagine you trade queens first, right? Wouldn't that be the first one?
Very nice. You trade queens and you take the rook. I actually won this freaking game because I was a little goon. I was a little devil. I eventually won the knight somehow, even though it could have evacuated itself, and I won this game. But this taught me a lesson I never forgot. This in conjunction with the lesson. G6 and E6 is one of the worst combinations of moves you can possibly play. And the reason that G6 plays a role here is the bishop is gone from F8. If the bishop was at least on F8, it would defend this square, right? Now this square is completely unattended. Okay, so I know we took a while on this particular concept, but I really wanted to hammer this home. Now, when you play a bunch of games in the accelerated, we are going to see what your opponents play most commonly. The main move is knight to c3. So continue the development.
G7, bishop,
bishop G7. And the great thing about the accelerated dragon, it's super frickin' natural. Most people are going to take on c6 with the knight. Which way do you take with?
I imagine I take with the b pawn, right?
You take with the b pawn, exactly. What do you gain from this, Gaucho?
It lets me get my bishop where I want it in the first place on that b7, right?
Why do you want it here?
Because it's going to be attacking kingside.
It's going to be attacking these nuts. It's going to be attacking the king. So it's me staring at the pawn. So bishop b7, and then you wanted to move the pawn out of c6, right?
Well, yeah, I just meant like eventually we want both
Eventually.
bishops on the
Okay,
what was it
well-
called, the Naroditsky super shitter or something, where you have both bishops on the same side.
The Horowitz bishops.
Yeah, there it is, the Horowitz.
The Horowitz bishops, yes. So I agree that was completely inadequate reaction. Bishop b7 is indeed something you play, but I would say that the word eventually is problematic here, because look at what could happen. If you put the bishop here, you see that the e4 pawn is super well defended by white.
Yeah.
The problem is, even if you play c5, the bishop is going to be biting on granite here. So I would generally say you want to develop this bishop along this diagonal.
Okay.
And I want to make a lot of these observations because I want you to understand as much as possible the sort of correct system of developing your pieces in the accelerated. So let's say that white plays bishop d3 as we did. Continue developing with black. What do you do?
I'm now developing knight to f6, right?
Yes,
Or
that's perfect.
Okay.
Knight f6 is great. You're not afraid of this move. What square is now possible for the knight? It's
now,
super shitter. Again, the move e5, something I told you at the beginning of the session. When a pawn is pushed like this, what squares are left behind?
I don't recall. What I was looking at is just centralizing the knight
Yeah.
again by just bringing it to d5.
Exactly, right? The pawn used to defend the square. Sorry, not to like over
Oh, okay, I get you.
belabor the point. And in the accelerated, it's going to be extremely important to keep this bishop active. So if white tries to defend the pawn with f4, can we get the hell rid of this pawn? While
Yeah,
also,
Push a pawn of our own, right?
yep, d6, forcing the trade, and we got an amazing position. So e5 is not dangerous. Therefore, and you're definitely going to have this position. People usually do this, castles, castles. And the great thing about this, black's play is so natural here. Let's say that white develops his other bishop to e3, right? Strike in the center. Black is already better here. Occupy that center and open up your pieces.
Now I'm just pushing to d5, right?
Bingo. E takes d5. Continue.
Take c pawn.
What are you threatening?
I'm threatening a fork at d4.
Threatening a fork. White actually has a hard time defending against it. Let's say white plays bishop to e2. Queen defending the pawn. How do we reinforce the threat of the fork while grabbing more of the center?
I bring the e pawn to e5, right?
Go. And now your favorite news ever. You actually can fiend get the bishop here.
Oh, there it is.
Friggin' yeah, that's exactly what you meant. Actually, you meant in this position.
Yeah.
It was just implied. I should have interpreted it that way. Of course. How could I have thought it was in another position? And black already is much better. Now you will bring your queen in, your rooks in, and black's got an amazing position. So that's one possible sequence of events. Now knight takes c6 at a high level is a mistake, because it allows this pawn here, it allows black to have an easier time preparing d5, and later the rook could get to b8. So white's best move here is actually bishop e3. And this one we will talk about later. Black goes knight f6. Basically, black develops in very simple fashion. That's the great thing about the accelerated. And in Sicilian in general, the development is supernatural. Okay? But I think that with openings, we'll definitely ramp it up. But I think this is a good place to pause for the opening segment. What do you think? You have a lot to mull over here.
Yeah, can we, in the beginning, I already forgot. So this line we fianchettoed, but I don't... Okay,
so quick review. If bishop c4, and as many questions as you want. I mean, I just don't want to overwhelm you with too much openings.
So when it's the Italian, that's when I'm e6 to blunt that.
Blunt the bishop, castles. And one of the keys, do not rush with d5. d5, you're in no rush to play this move.
Okay, so then we're just doing f6 first then.
Okay, if e5?
Now we are just occupying the d5, right?
Not here, although knight d5 is okay. Now remember, this pawn becomes weak now, so we want to attack it. Move the knight and attack the pawn.
Yeah, I'm doing g4. G4.
Bingo.
Right.
And now we carve out the development of our pieces. Get rid of this pawn.
Okay, now we're just doing d6.
Bingo. And this bishop, the Naroditsky super shitter, comes out too.
Right.
I'm going to adopt that if you don't mind. Copyright Charlie White. But
by all means. And then now we're getting the bishop to b7, right? So we just push b6. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Cool. b6, bishop b7. And if rook e1 here.
Now we're just taking the pawn on e4.
Going.
And then we're going d5.
Nice. So this is just one of the possible lines. Obviously, we have, like, I think what we're going to do openings-wise next time is review c3. We're going to look at the c3 Sicilian, and we're going to look more at the main line. We're also going to look at this move bishop b5. This is called the Rosolimo. And here you actually still play g6. So you play this much like an accelerated dragon. And there's actually not as much theory as people think there is. The Sicilian is like mythologized, but to play it at a good basic level, you know, it's not like insurmountable, if that makes sense.
Okay, I get it.
And we're also going to involve the Vienna. But, you know, openings, best, like black caviar, best in small doses. So I propose maybe jump in for two more games, and we can maybe draw some conclusions. What say you to that?
Yeah, but last question I had in the...
As many as you want, yeah.
In the... Can I move this?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then it was white going here, you took, right? And then played knight?
In the main line. So in the main open Sicilian, white prepares this by going knight f3. And now knight c6.
Okay. I was wondering when this happened, because I know we took a pawn in one of the examples, and I couldn't remember. So this is the open Sicilian that
Open Sicilian, yeah. Knight takes d4, open Sicilian because they open up the position, and now you do what?
Now it's fianchettoing, right? So I'm going g6 and then...
Yes.
Okay.
And one key just point here. If white takes on c6, immediately continue.
And then I'm taking on b7, or taking on b6 with the b7 pawn.
Yeah, there's one move I want to alert you to, which is queen to d4, attacking the rook. Stopping bishop g7, but that's not a problem. How can you defend that rook while developing?
I'm just developing knight to f6.
Okay, e5.
I'm just going to d5.
Already you're pattern recognizing. This is awesome. Now white has this move e6, which looks intimidating because it exposes the attack on the rook. And here I'm just going to tell you, you just play f6. And this looks awkward, but give this a chance. After e takes d7, you play, you can play bishop takes d7. You can even play queen takes d7. But I like bishop takes d7. And then the move f6 is going to allow you to prepare what further central control?
The e5.
Bingo. And then you're basically going to position your bishops like this. You're going to have a super solid position. It takes some getting used to. This is an acquired taste kind of position. I don't think people are going to do this in its entirety, but I just wanted you to be aware of this move. This doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. I will analyze this also myself to make sure I'm telling you exactly the right moves. So
in this position, what would they normally do? Just develop?
So let me think about this. I'm going to check actually. Well, if I check the main chess database, that's not going to be representative of what your people do. So knight c3 is the most common move, right?
Right.
There is also, what do grandmasters play? Grandmasters play this move c4. This is called the Maróczy bind, because you bind on the d5 square, named after Geza Maróczy, Hungarian player. Very important information. And this is what the grandmasters play, but this is not what you're going to be facing, and I'll teach you how to play against this. It's a very positional opening. You're saying, I'm not going to attack, I'm going to clamp down on the center. And in the long run, I'm going to make it very hard for black to go d5. Right?
Right.
But your actual play doesn't change here. What do you think black does?
It's still just going to probably be playing normally, right? I'm fianchettoing.
And then we're going down the friggin' main of the main lines, and you're getting all the moves.
Yeah, so then we're just going to be up there at f6 next.
Yep. Natural development.
Castling.
Main line of the Maróczy bind, my friend. Continue.
Just b6, b7.
This is interesting. That's one line, but d6 is the main line.
Oh, okay.
And this is the beginning of the theory. And we will talk about this position because that will help you build understanding. Here, black has to play in a very specific manner in order not to get squeezed and suffocated. But you will not get this position anytime soon. But you can see that was already 9 frickin' moves of theory that you played instantly. Okay, and we basically just started. So imagine where we'll be in a frickin' month from now. You'll be the ultimate accelerated dragon expert.
That feels good. I just need to remember we'll review this a million times. And I just want to warn you, like, when we do these openings, you're going to forget
First couple, you're going to lose some games. You're going to get crushed a couple times, and you're going to make stupid mistakes. You're going to forget. You're going to mess up the move order on move 2, and you just have to be patient with yourself. It's Rich telling me to advising someone to be patient with themselves, because if I mess up the move order, my entire apartment is usually trashed. But you just have to expect that. It's a rite of passage when you're learning new openings.
Okay. I mean,
so hopefully you'll get a chance to try this Sicilian like right now.
Yeah. All right. So you want to just hop in the pool then?
Hop in the friggin' pool if you feel like it.
Yes,
sir. I think that's a great way to round off.
It's game time, baby.
Oh, shit. Wait, I need to follow you. Oh my God, he plays the... Okay, so he plays the C3 Sicilian.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you want to do, you want to strike first in the center. You do not want to let him play D4. You want to strike first. What does that mean?
So am I just going to do the Marozzi bind with an E5?
That's possible, but not E5, but what's the other central strike?
Is it still doing the dragon over here?
No, D5. The move is pawn to D5.
Oh, I see.
Bingo. And after E takes D5, queen takes D5. Here's the key. Normally, it's a bad idea to put the queen on D5 because white does what move to chase the queen?
Pawn move.
No, I mean, if you play the Scandi, how does white chase the queen? What does white develop to what square? Well, it's for
to chase me away from D5. Oh, he plays C3 with his
knight C3. But here, he doesn't have it. Okay, F3 is already very bad. So now, and this is one of the keys in the Sicilian, oftentimes you don't want to do anything. You just want to keep developing. And I want to see how you develop.
So am I going right back to the dragon with the knight here at C6?
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so much for lives, and I'll thank everybody properly later. Loving the support. Okay.
Do I need to be alert here, or am I just going right now at G6?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, see, that's the great thing about this. In most cases, you can just play the accelerated moves. They might not be the best moves, but they'll be good enough. Okay. Now you need to be a little bit alert.
Yeah, because now I have that pawn undefended.
Yeah, so deal with that.
I can just B... Well, I can't B6 because that hangs my knight.
No, but I mean, trading is okay.
Okay, so I'm just taking then.
That also softens up his D4 pawn. And guess what? You're fianchettoing your bishop, so unless he plays this super accurately, he might end up... His center might end up collapsing here. Awesome. Awesome.
So I can't take, he's now have...
Okay.
So I'm just going to develop.
Absolutely. He should play E5 here. And that closes up the center, reaches an interesting position, which you need kind of practice playing. Okay. Continue developing. Absolutely. That.
When do I look to push B6 to get the bishop to B7? Or is that situational?
It's situational, and here, of course, the knight on C6 is going to be hanging. So the thing is, you don't always have to develop your pieces, all of them, all at once. Like, a piece can be on its initial square for the time being. But if you can... Okay, so what you want to do is you want to soften up white's center. So you actually want to trade. And what you are going to see when you trade... Well, what specifically do you trade?
Am I trading pawns right here?
Yes.
Okay.
Here's the thing. Do you see that your queen now makes contact with the D4 pawn?
Yeah.
After he takes with a pawn, I think he's going to... Okay, he takes with a knight. That's not a great move, because now that bishop on G7, always harken back to your accelerated dragon bishop. That bishop is a beast that often comes alive. So what do?
Well, I need to free up the knight, so I just trade knight here.
Trade. And then what can you take?
That gives me the pawn now, right?
Absolutely. Not only the pawn, but his position just collapses. Now, what do you want to take it with?
So do I want to do bishop first?
No.
So that way when I... Oh, okay.
You need to keep your... Sorry, that didn't mean to be harsh. You need to keep your accelerated dragon bishop.
Okay. So I take with knight then.
Yes. And what you're going to see, he's probably going to take your knight, then you take, and he can't even castle. That accelerated dragon bishop is now preventing his king from castling. So you're up a pawn and you've got a huge attack. Go ahead. 12 moves, you're already basically winning.
Alright. So the only reason I was doing bishop first was to have the knight attacking the bishop.
Yeah, I totally understood, and we'll talk about that. But okay, so queen d2 is a good move. Now, you need to spot his he has an undefended piece, right? That bishop on b5.
Yeah.
So you can bring a piece out and you can attack that bishop. And you can build a little battery.
Do I just push up this f pawn, f6?
The other bishop is what I mean. The bishop on b5.
Oh, I was looking at his... Okay, I see. Yeah.
So that bishop you can attack with what move?
D7.
No. Then you move your queen.
Oh, yeah. You're right, because then I blocked the...
You block the other bishop, yeah.
Yeah.
Queen b6, yeah.
Okay, I see. Gotcha.
Yeah, don't worry. You'll get a better sense of these kinds of positions very quickly. But does this move make sense? You get the queen out of the standoff and you attack the b5 bishop.
And it's still protecting the bishop. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, he's good. This guy's playing well. Okay, but now you need to complete your development.
So I was looking at just g4
sure,
for the
go ahead. And that also prevents him castling long. Now, he can take the pawn on e7, and if he does, you have a super nice move there. You can sacrifice in exchange in order to... You see that e4 pawn, right?
Mm-hmm.
A pawn is super weak. If you can get a rook to e4 at any moment... Okay, so he goes there. Now, where should you move your rook? Nice open file.
I just want to put it at d8, right?
Yep. And what tactically do you notice immediately?
It's now X-raying the queen.
X-raying the queen. So you don't necessarily look for moves immediately. You just notice that. That's enough, because depending on what he does, then you might start looking for discoveries. Okay, finally he is stumped. And there's going to be a long time where you feel like you're at sea in these positions. But so are your opponents. Like, nobody below really 1400 studies the Sicilian properly. So remember that you're not going to be playing people who are at all well prepared. They might have a line chosen, but that's right about it. So, and the same goes for your white openings, by the way. Okay, rook, okay. Oh my god, you have a beautiful move here.
So, I don't just take the rook with the bishop?
Not yet. Discovery against the queen. What comes to mind?
The only check that I saw
Go ahead, do it.
Well, the f2, he just takes with the queen.
But then keep calculating. You have checkmate in 1. You see your bishop on g4? You see your rook on d8? They combine to attack what square?
Oh, I see the d1.
Yep. And
So
that's where the puzzles are going to come in. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm still just doing this f2.
Yeah. The way I see this is when he plays rook d1, I notice which pieces are... Okay, great.
Yeah, so now it's just checkmate, bringing rook down.
Congrats on your first Sicilian game.
Yeah, okay.
So,
that makes sense.
Okay, so just a couple of things, and then maybe you can play one last one. Let me invite you. Just important, because these first couple of games in the Sicilian are gonna offer us very important chances to improve. Okay, invited.
Talk that bad boy one more time.
Sure. Done. Okay, so c3 d5, the rationale behind this makes sense, right? If they take, we get away with taking with the queen, and this is the main line. White goes d4, and now keep pressure the pawn.
Yes, and now I'm just bringing up the knight to c6, right?
Bingo. And you almost never want to take the pawn, because what concession does this make? Thinking about what we talked about in the context of the queen on d5.
Well, now I can just develop the knight.
Bingo. So you want to keep the tension. Knight f3. Now apply indirect pressure on this pawn. When I say indirect pressure, what I basically mean usually is you apply pressure on the pieces defending a particular pawn. But it's also a natural developing. You should see this, regardless of its intention. It's just an intuitive move.
I'm still fianchettoing, right?
Not yet. First, deal with this bishop. Where can you put it?
Do I go to the g4?
Yes. You seem mystified at this move.
Yeah, cool, because he's just going to chase it away.
Okay, but wait a minute. This bishop is making contact with the knight. What pawn is this knight defending?
Oh, it's defending the d4.
How many attackers does the d4 pawn have? Three. So after h3, we do what?
Take.
Yeah, and then even queen takes, you take the queen, pawn takes, you take the pawn. So even, by the way, even if he did chase you away, even if he does this, right, look at how weak the knight becomes. Yeah. The knight is now basically undefended, it's pinned. So sometimes you want to provoke that. That's also fine. But anyways, we'll talk about that later. f3, knight c6, and you see how adaptable the accelerated dragon is. You can basically play it against anything. And here, yeah.
When should I trade pawns? In that situation, it was hanging. When is it just when I can't defend it with a pawn?
Oh, you mean this pawn?
The move before this, we just.
Oh, so yeah, I mean, it's just because he wants to take on c5, okay. And also like trading softens up the center. Ultimately, the accelerated dragon is a hyper-modern opening, and not to lecture you too much, but I might have talked about this before. The hyper-modernists were a group of people in the 1920s who developed all of these openings, like the accelerated dragon and King's Indian, and these are openings where you allow your opponent a greater share of the center. Okay, which they were laughed out of every tournament because of that. Because like this was anathema. You couldn't say that. The center was all the rage. I mean, I know that sounds weird to us now, but literally they were laughed at. But the bottom line in these openings is you deploy your pieces in sniper-like fashion. You attack White's center from afar. And so you want to do whatever it takes to soften up White's center. Does it make sense that this trade weakens the d4 pawn?
Yeah.
And it should also make sense, by that same token, that the move d takes e4 applies even more pressure on the pawn. If they had gone f takes e4, what would you do here? To the point of identifying new squares that are now made available to your pieces. Super important.
Do I just bring the bishop over to g4 first?
Yes. And okay. Actually, if h3, do you take the knight?
I don't think so.
Just because I asked you?
Well, I want to keep the pin, right?
Actually, no. So if you play bishop h5, first of all, that's a blunder. You blunder the bishop.
Oh, there's no retreat squares, right? He just pushes up.
Yeah, so when you fianchetto, you got to be careful about this. But by taking the knight, look what happens to White's center. This d4 pawn, right? It needs to be defended, which means he's got to take with the e-knight, which means you have now what?
Now I have just taking the pawn, right?
Bingo.
Yeah.
And White's whole position collapses. By the way, you should also bear in mind in such positions, queen a5 check. Sometimes this wins a piece. Here he can go back to c3, but now you can do what? This is an even better version of what we just talked about.
Yeah, I just take the pawn again because it's...
Yeah, absolutely. So
in that position, if we did get the bishop to g4, why wouldn't he just take with like a queen or something? Well, that wouldn't make any sense. Never mind. I see.
Well, then you take this pawn.
Yeah, I see.
White can't defend both at the same time.
Yeah, he just loses a pawn regardless.
Right. I mean, he can defend. He can play d5 and he can start. But now it's a runaway train, and now he gives you this square, and I mean, just all of your pieces are breathing here, even if you don't win the pawn. So that's the point behind d takes c4. Knight takes c4. You did the same. You didn't need to play bishop g4. You just win the pawn. And now this is what concerned me a little bit. Right? The move queen b6, I want this to be automatic. How do I find this move? Fundamentally, right, this bishop is the only undeveloped piece. So I understand your instinct to go bishop d7, but there's just something about it that seems very passive. Not to mention that it drops this bishop. Does it actually drop the bishop? Do you lose a piece?
Well, I can deliver a check and get the bishop back.
Do you need to deliver a check?
Oh, I just take the bishop right away.
Yeah, but is it a good idea to trade queens, even if you win a pawn? The answer is no, because this brings White closer to liquidating, right? Whereas clearly you are the one attacking here. So queen b6, building the battery, attacking the bishop, and everything crumbles. Get the bishop out. I would even consider getting the bishop to like e6. You don't always need to develop the bishop to quote-unquote the most active square. Okay, you can also play a6, by the way, and chase White's bishop away. So many possibilities here. But now rook f8 and this key move bishop f2. You could also have taken on d1. And if queen takes d1, then what do?
I just deliver that check with the bishop right and I win a queen.
Yes, and what about king takes d1? Find the most clinical move. Be careful here, because if you move the bishop just anywhere, he can block the pin with bishop d3. So you need to add some more Tabasco sauce to that white queen.
Do I swing it all the way around to h5? Or, whoa, no, I can't even do that. I don't know what I was looking at.
Great move.
Jesus. I just directly attack it at e3. Okay.
Nice. Bishop e3. Oh yeah, you saw the arrow. Sorry, I didn't mean to. But bishop e3. What is the purpose? You attack the queen with 2 different pieces. And after bishop takes e3, you don't even have to take the queen yet. What can you do first?
I can just take the bishop first.
Yeah. Pins, spins, 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 spins. And this is winning. You can also go bishop c3. But yeah, those are the most accurate moves. So does that make perfect sense? But bishop f2, when you start solving problems again regularly, which I want you to do, you're going to start seeing these moves pretty quickly. Because I immediately see a rook appearing on d1. My brain just inputs that. Right? Okay, rook can appear on d1 and it's checkmate. Because the queen obstructs that square. But that's the Sicilian for you. Welcome to the world.
Okay.
So
it's gonna take a little.
It's gonna take a week, 2 weeks, and I have infinite patience in that regard. And if you think you're gonna get off the hook from that drill we once did, we're gonna have one lesson where we do that frickin' drill where I give you 1 minute basically to win 30 positions where you're up a queen and a rook to get that speed going as well. What do you say? One more for the road?
Yeah.
What was that?
Oh, I let off the thing. Yeah, I'm ready. I'll hop in.
Perfect. Fantastic. All right. And another black and another Sicilian. Yes! As if they couldn't have scripted it any better. Ah!
Oh, so this is mainline, right?
Mainline.
Right.
Big boy stuff. Absolutely. You're going knight c6. You better.
Okay.
Let's see if he goes, yeah!
So then this is where I take.
Yeah. And Fianchetto. Welcome to the Accelerated Dragon, my friend. Scripted. Okay, main line. We talked about this bishop b3 or knight c. We talked about knight c6. I said that that's the most. Okay, bishop b3 is main line. Develop.
And then it is
Just develop.
f6.
Yeah. You are playing big boy opening theory right now. He's probably gonna. Okay, f4. So,
it's still castle. Right?
So I would say here, you have to ask yourself, what is the purpose of f4? What move does it prepare?
e5.
Yeah, so there is a move you want to make here, which you want to make anyway in these positions to stop e5. Yeah, play d6 first. So be flexible in your development. I'm teaching you an opening scheme, but what has to transcend that is, first and foremost, you have to look at what your opponent is doing. Because your opponents are going to do a wide variety of various things, and sometimes you're going to have to modify or change the order of things a little bit.
Okay, so in this position, if he pushes e5 still, do I want to take or do I just want to go d5 right away?
Well, if he pushes e5, you can't go knight d5. That hangs. You can also go knight g4, by the way. Look at that g4 square. That can set his entire position in disarray because his bishop defends the knight on d4 and his position may collapse. Okay, so bishop b5, you have to attend to that. Defend the pin. You know how to defend against these pins.
Yeah. At one point in time, I'm sure I did.
Right. And you will again.
Do I just bring the bishop there at d7?
Yes, bingo. And one area where you've grown and I like it is you don't always now try to develop a piece to the quote-unquote most active square. Like bishop on d7, a lot of people look at it and say that's a shitty bishop. Not really. It's fine. It's doing its job. And you actually already have a super nice move here. I already mentioned this move to you before.
Yeah, is it g4?
Nice. Knight g4.
Yeah, okay, cool.
If he moves his bishop, guess what wins the game is the Fianchetto bishop on g7. He's got to take on c6, which is a concession. We talked about that. Yeah, he's already in trouble. And you could have also castled, but that's a good idea. That's a good thing, a good lesson of not being on autopilot, eliminating the autopilot, always considering the concrete resources in a given position rather than sort of making the next move on the laundry list. So does this move knight g4 make sense?
Yeah.
And he played f4 on move 7. That was a mistake because that left the bishop on e3 undefended. You're exploiting that. It makes perfect logical sense. And ultimately, okay, perfect. You're winning. How? In many ways, actually.
Yeah, so I just take that bishop.
Yes.
And then from there, it's...
He's probably going to take back and lose this queen, but he should take on c6, but you're going to end up a piece up anyway.
If he takes... I'm having a hard time figuring out the next line. If he takes on e3 with the queen...
Okay.
The next move...
Oh,
it's taking the knight on
with?
d4. With the bishop.
With the bishop pinning his queen, winning his queen. And the accelerated dragon bishop wins the game there. He can cut his losses. Well, okay, he does. Now, here you have to be very precise. What you want to do here, look at... Okay, what do you think black should do? What should you take?
I was looking at taking the rook.
That's fine. That's one of the possibilities. Probably not the exact most precise move, but it's fine.
Okay,
because... Yeah, do it, and you'll see what would happen if he reacts correctly, and then this is winning. This is also winning. Basically, the reason is that knight on f1 is going to be trapped, and you could have won a piece instead of an exchange, which is marginally better.
Okay, so I just take here with the queen.
Of course.
Well,
he doesn't take on f1. If he's 5-head, he's going to move his knight from d4, let's say to f3 or b3, and he will. I mean, I think you'll see that. And then... Okay, so he does something similar, which is also fine. Now, this is a very good chance for me to remind you of a principle. When you have a piece that is lost, okay, remember that you want to give this piece up for as much, you want to take with you as much as you can. If you're already losing the piece, you might as well freaking give it up for something. So what do I mean here?
Just taking the pawn on h2.
Bingo. And when you blunder pieces, and you will, that's a good way to cut your losses. Okay, so now you're up in exchange and a pawn. Continue. Develop.
Yeah, now I just want a castle.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now think about, are there pieces that could be deployed into the game that are currently not doing anything?
What I was looking at is pushing the f7 pawn to f5 to try and open this up here to get the rook into the action. That's
not a bad idea at all, but remember, f5, e takes f5. You cannot take on f5 with the rook. You can take with the pawn, though.
Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you that in this... Okay, he goes f5 himself. I'll tell you this. In the Sicilian, the rook on a8 generally belongs on c8. That is just a rule of the Sicilian. The reason why is the c-file, you can see that it would pressure the knight on c3. The c-file is what's called a semi-open file. There's only pawns of one color on that file. And so, because there's a white pawn on c2, this benefits black. So you can go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Now,
so just right to c8 then?
Rook a c8. Now, do you see that the move f5 doesn't actually create any threats? That's a paper tiger. It may look intimidating, but it doesn't do anything at all. In fact, it weakens the square. It gives you a nice little outpost on what square, potentially, with check, too.
On e5.
Beautiful little square. Now, you don't need to rush with that check, but just keep that in mind. Now, the rook on c8 is not even done yet. Where could it go from here to twist the knife?
Are we looking at c5 and getting it over to h5?
Potentially, if he takes the pawn, then yes. But if he doesn't, if he leaves the pawn on f5, where can the rook go?
Oh, am I just going to c4 then?
Bingo. I'm telling you, you have a freaking sense for these positions. I just knew it, and I can see it. Rook c4 attacks the knight, and he has to move the knight, and his position collapses. Yeah, this guy knew... Okay.
So I'm just playing that now?
Yeah. There's many ideas of this move. You can also stack the rooks on c8. Okay. He's playing this pretty well, but now you can strike in the center. See, this is a good time. He's moved his pieces away so you can rip apart the center.
Yeah, so now do I just play d5 here?
Yeah! Sorry, excited. Yes. I'm excited for you to be playing this opening. This is going to pay off in a big way. Okay, b3.
I have to drop the rook now.
Yeah, that's okay.
Do I drop it all the way back, or do I want to drop it like c5?
Back all the way. c5 would run under the crosshairs of the queen on f2. It would be a discovery there. And this is one of the other things I want you to pay attention to increasingly is you put a piece on a square. A lot of people are averse to bringing a piece back to where it came. Like, well, I just came from there. But the situation changes, and that's generally not a reason to not do that. Okay, now what? Complete the job?
I just take now.
Yeah. Exposing the attack on the knight. Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, he's busted. He's got 20 seconds. And this is your first day playing the Accelerated. Okay. What can you tell me about the rook on d1?
Undefended.
Bingo. So do you have to worry about the x-ray? The queen is actually in charge here. Can you attack that knight?
If I take with bishop, he takes. I can't. Can I?
You can. Nope. But you can apply pressure on it with a piece that is currently on not doing anything.
I'm looking at e5.
With a piece that's currently e5, you can en passant you.
Oh, right. I totally forgot about en passant.
There is a piece that's not doing anything. It's sitting on f8. You should see this.
Okay, so I just
move.
bring the rook over to d8.
Yeah. Rook d8. Don't lose on time, or I'm gonna have a big problem. A big fucking problem. We lose this game on time. Collect the harvest.
I just take the pawn.
Yeah. Why the pawn? The knight. Okay,
Oh,
the pawn
shit.
is fine.
All
This
right.
is fine. No, it's fine. Now you take the rook and you win the rook.
Yeah.
But and he takes on e7. You can tuck. Okay, just take back and fine. You got to move fast. Tuck the king away on h8. Okay. Bring queen back to d4 or something.
Wait.
Queen d4. Move. Queen g7. You can take the knight, and pre-move everything.
Jesus Christ.
Pre-move. Every move has to be a pre-move, Charlie. Literally, rook 1 square forward. Pre-move everything. This is good practice pre-moving. Move. Bingo. That's the new frickin' Charlie. That's what I'm talking about. You would have lost that game on time. You can pre-move with the best of them. So when you reach 3-4 seconds, and you are probably going to have a time scramble in PogChamps, there has to be a threshold. You reach 4 seconds, you pre-move whatever it takes. It doesn't matter what move you make. I can't emphasize that enough. Okay, and you did that here very successfully.
Okay, so I had a quick question though.
Please.
Towards the end.
So let me invite you to a board.
Yeah.
And we will practice the speed as well, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, at the end when I took pawn instead of knight, I was wondering why knight was the better call.
Right. So...
Maybe I'm just not remembering the position right in my head.
Yeah, so basically here, rook f d8 attacks the knight.
Mm-hmm.
The knight, can he defend with c3 first of all?
No, because he hangs the pawn.
Right, that's why we put the rook there. Now, taking the pawn, I suppose, is fine, but taking the knight is just a free knight. I mean, why take the pawn and slightly weaken your king? I guess it's fine, because he has to move this knight, and then you can take the knight? I guess it's fine, but this is more pure.
Okay, I get you.
This is more pure. And then you can take the pawn with the queen, without ruining your king's side.
Okay, that makes sense.
But this move, rook d8, right? Now, e5, he had en passant. Does that make sense? Can you make that en passant on the board?
Let's just go and think right here.
And believe it or not, this is actually good for black. Because now he's got to move his queen. And you can again make the move e5.
Okay.
And this time, this is a funny technique. And this time he doesn't have en passant. Exactly. That's what the knight is saying. So that would have also been fine. But rook d8 is, again, the cleanest. In terms of other notes, this move knight g4 is what I want you to keep in mind. Whenever they play f4, that bishop on e3 loses its protection. And it's a matter of time until you play knight g4. He should have probably gone h3 to stop it.
Oh, I remember the other thing. When I took bishop and then took rook, what was the better thing instead of taking rook?
So it was actually just to take on d4, which does many things. You win a piece. Okay, now you have a discovered check against the king on the cards, and you're still attacking the rook. So mathematically speaking, you get the same thing you get in the game, except you also win the knight. For example, if he moves his rook to e1, give me the best discovered check here.
Oh, just going to c2.
Bingo, and you win the rook, and you're up a full rook there, and several pawns. Okay, so it's a simple matter in these situations of not stopping the calculation, because you kind of stopped and said, he takes on f1, and then I take the knight. Not to put words in your mouth, I feel like that's what might have happened. But the knight, what I see, The knight is not getting out. He could have, well, he basically did that. He could move the knight away. Now you have to give away the knight. You're only up in exchange, which is still great, but not the same as a rook.
That makes sense.
So, but overall, I cannot be happier with how the Sicilian is starting out. And this is just the beginning. So on deck for us next, we're going to tighten the screws here in some of these lines, and we're going to get started on the Vienna. And you're going to have a ton of fun in that line as well.
Okay, cool.
And once again, what you want to hit in the meantime is you want to do puzzles, as much as you can. You want to play, and if you play on your own, I will go through your games and assemble. I'll try to assemble puzzle sets on the basis of your mistakes. So that'll give me a lot of material to incorporate and cycle into future lessons where we'll talk about your mistakes. So, I won't police that too much. Play as much as your heart desires.